Hello, I'm Bebe Heiskell, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about myself, about my administration, about Walker County and its future. A little bit about my background. I think I come from strong stock. Not too long ago I found that I had an ancestor who fought with George Washington at Valley Forge, and so that made me very proud, and I've traced it down to find if it was true and found that he's buried now at Friendship, Tennessee. But my parents were Tennesseans, both born in Tennessee, Otis M. Smith and Beatrice Markwood Smith. And I had a brother who passed away in 2001. His name was Otis Markwood Smith. And a sister, Patricia Lee Smith Ambrose, who died the 7th of June of this year. I'm the baby of the family, and I have always been a good student. I went to Best T. Shepherd Elementary and Tyner High School. I graduated at the age of 16, fifth in my class. And I skipped my sophomore year in high school just because I could, I guess. And then I went to McKenzie Business School, and at night while I worked. My father died when I was young, and I didn't feel like my mother could afford to pay for a college education for me, and so I went to night school and I worked a job at Anesthesiologists Associated in Chattanooga, where I worked for 17 years. I married my high school sweetheart, Tom Heiskell, and we were married from when I got out of high school, and he was in the United States Navy until he passed away on September the 15th, 1993. We had one son, Thomas Spencer Heiskell, who passed away October the 29th, 2006 with a heart attack. He was age 46. We lived in Chattanooga the first 10 years of our marriage. We moved to High Point, Georgia in 1966, and not too long after that time, I went to work for Walker County government. Actually, it was in December of 1972 when Bill Quinn was the county commissioner. I was hired by Roy Parish. We had a mutual brother-in-law, and I got a call from my son who was at his son's house, and he said, "Mom, I've got somebody here that wants to talk to you." And I thought, oh no, they're going to get on here and see if he can spend the night, because that was the thing that they did sometimes. And it was actually Roy Parish who said that he had talked to my brother-in-law and that I was qualified to be a secretary, and he needed one because the person who he was going to hire had backed out and wanted to keep her regular job. So I interviewed with him the next day, and I went to the county and I met with Lena Joe Tucker, who was at that time the county clerk, and I found that I didn't know a whole lot about it, as I'd been in the medical field for a long time, and so I just stayed. I stayed the rest of the year and went to work for him January the 1st of 1973. And I worked for Roy Parish for 24 years, as he was county commissioner, the sole commissioner of Walker County for that time. During that time, my son got married, had 2 children, ended up with he and his wife splitting up, and my husband and I adopted those 2 children we took them when they were 2 months and 3 years old, and we raised them. But my husband, when he died, they were 7 and 10, so I finished raising those 2 daughters by myself. And my son remarried and had another child, a son, and he was 5 years old when my son passed away, and they lived next door to me. And so, briefly, that's my life. Leadership. My family has been in leadership positions, and we do take leadership positions and take leadership very seriously. I believe that leadership requires a higher standard than those you lead. And I say that because I believe that Christian leadership is very important for our community and for government. And I try to lead my life in a way that you can tell that I am a Christian and that I would never do anything to embarrass the people of Walker County. And if I've ever done anything to embarrass them, I don't know. But at any rate, I think that we are held to a higher standard and I have done my very best to maintain that higher standard. About maybe more than 3 years ago, something happened that I'd never seen before, and it was something called Lafayette Underground. And at least for the last 3 years, they've systematically tried to discredit me, to destroy my credibility and make me look bad. And I'm so sorry about that. And I really don't think I've done anything to deserve it, except that I must be in somebody's way. At any rate, I didn't even read it for a long, long time, and people would tell me about it. And I don't really respect people that won't tell you who they are. They won't give you their names. And so lately, I've even had people to email me with strange names like Fly Ink that are very insulting to me. And I usually answer them, but if I do, it just gets to be a bad dialogue, and so I try to not answer them. But anyway, this has become such a terrible thing that they've done a lot to hurt a lot of people. And I understand they have endorsed my opponent, and she said it was because I didn't answer their questionnaire. Well, I had answers to their questionnaires, but everything I've ever said, they have discredited in such a way that I didn't think it would be wise for me to even answer their questionnaire. I don't mind to answer the questions, but I didn't take the time to answer it to them. We have a local option sales tax. That local option sales tax was started in 1975 when it was put on a ballot, and the people of Walker County voted to institute 1 penny of local option sales tax to roll back property tax for all people who owned property in the county. And it was put into effect, and it rolled property tax back across the board for people in the cities and the county who paid county property tax. And it was fair because everybody got the same opportunity, and they had the same percentage taken off their taxes, and it rolled back your county property tax to a great degree, and it lowered the millage, and it was a really good thing, and everybody liked it. And the next year, the cities, through the Georgia Municipal Association, decided they wanted their own money, and so they asked to have their money given to them instead of to the county. And so Walker County's population ratio at that time, and has been for a long, long time, was 80% of the people lived in the unincorporated area of Walker County, and 20% in the respective cities in Walker County, being Lafayette, Lookout Mountain, Chickamauga, Rossville, and the part of Fort Oglethorpe that is in Walker County. And so that was done, and the counties kept their portion, and the cities kept their portion. And then in 1979, it was declared unconstitutional for the county not to give across-the-board rollback for everybody who paid county property tax, and I agree with that. That's true. I think it should have been done. And so the counties rolled back all the county property tax, whether it was in the city or whether the taxpayer lived in the city, or the property owner, I should say, lived in the city or the county. So that meant that the people that lived in the cities got their 20% from the city and their 20% from the county, so that's actually 40%. So we were operating on a population basis and renegotiating it every 10 years until this year. And this year they don't want to use the population as a factor in how you redistribute the local option sales tax, and this has become an issue that has been said that we have to settle it, or we'll go into or we go into mediation. If we don't go into mediation, or if we don't settle it through mediation, then we'll have to go into baseball arbitration, which means whoever's deciding it just takes one side or the other. They do not negotiate it, they just say one side or the other side. Well, I don't really think that it's fair to take money from the local option sales tax that is rolled back for the citizens of the county, or the property owners of the county, and give it to the city and cause me to raise taxes and them to lower theirs. I don't think that that's a fair way to do things. And so they have asked for, first thing they asked for was a 45-55 break, which means they've already got that 20% they're not considering. And then they've dropped it down to, they said 35-65. And then I heard of 30-70. And so I'm not really sure what their last offer was, but we have decided on a mediator whose name is Norman Fletcher, and he is the former or the retired Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court. He has been an attorney for the city of Lafayette and also Walker County's attorney, so he understands very well local governments, both at the city and the county level, and we believe he will be fair. We have not set a date for that. The reason that the budget has not been adopted is because I do not know how much money we will have from the local option sales tax until this negotiation is done. I can't, until I know what our revenue stream is going to be, I can't set a budget, and therefore we are operating off the last year's budget. With reference to the millage rate, it is not true that the state set the millage rate or that the state has frozen the millage rate. That is strictly a home rule thing, and county governing authorities are the only ones that ever set the millage rate, and they set it to manage their budget. We have not had a millage rate increase in at least 3 years, and that was a choice of mine and had nothing to do with the cities or with the state. It had to do with our budget and the fact that because our economy is not good right now, people can't pay more taxes, and I didn't want to raise taxes on them. With reference to what has been frozen by the state, that is people's property values. They were frozen statewide for 2 years, and that meant that because the economy was the way it was and people were losing property values, those values could not be increased unless a person added to their home or built a new home, they could add it, or did something to increase that value other than just having it increase because of inflation. And so that is still underway. With reference to Walker County and owning and purchasing a lot of real estate, the Swanson property is something that we have an option on. We have never purchased that. The reason we have an option on it is because in 2003, LG Chem, which is a large Korean manufacturer of stone countertops, came to Walker County, and they had a sister company that that was from Korea, that was United Synthetics, and they wanted to be in Walker County particularly because they knew the people at United Synthetics, and they were from somewhere else. And so we worked very hard, and they liked everything about Walker County and wanted to establish their huge manufacturing facilities here. But because we didn't have any property large enough to put them on, we lost them to Gordon County. They went down to Gordon County and they built 9 buildings, and they're going gangbusters. They're really doing a good job, and that was a big plus for Gordon County. So when that happened, I began to look for property we could find where we could put a large manufacturer in if we had another opportunity. I looked out on 151 and I looked around. It's not easy to find something like that. 151 had a lot of land out there, but they didn't have utilities. And so when I found the Swanson property, they had water, sewer, gas, electricity, rail, and fiber optics right along the railroad that adjoins that property. And it was a large enough parcel of property, or parcels put together, that we could put a large auto supplier or a large manufacturer there. It's not large enough for an auto assembly plant, but then we don't have enough employees to accommodate one anyway. That wasn't what we were looking for, but we were looking for a large employer that would pay good wages and to help our community. So I went to see Mr. Swanson, and he didn't want to sell it. And I told him how important it was, but he said no, he'd been raising cattle on there and he wanted to continue. And so I let that go. And then later on, when he had issues with his family and it came available to purchase, we put an option to purchase on there. And that option is to cost $10,000 a year, and that gives us the first right of refusal. If he has another buyer, we can buy it, or we can refuse to buy it and turn it over to somebody else. But why we have an option on it is so that if we have a supplier that comes and wants that kind of property, that we will be able to supply that. That $10,000 a year in the option, it will go back against the purchase of the property when it is sold, if it is sold to us. And if somebody else wants to buy it, then we can be the facilitators of their purchase. But if they want a tax incentive, then the development authority must buy it, and that bond that they buy it with will be paid back by the supplier. That's the way it was done with Roper, with Bluebird, with Synthetic Industries, and a number of other industries that are here in Walker County that had to have tax incentives in order to come. The other tax incentive is provided by the state of Georgia through tax credits, job tax credits. And in order to get the best job tax credits, you have to belong to a joint development authority. Walker County belongs to the Northwest Georgia Joint Development Authority. When I first took office, I was going to back right out of the Joint Development Authority because I thought it might be a waste of money. But DCA and the Regional Commission came to see me and explained to me why we needed to keep it, because it was very, very valuable to attract industry. And I learned more about it, worked with Kathy Johnson, who was at that time working as an assistant to a Larry Tucker, who was the executive director. And she later became the executive director of the Northwest Georgia Joint Development Authority. And she's a fine person. I called her my conscience ever since I met her. And she was able to convince me that that was the way to go, because Walker and Dade and Chattooga counties all belong to the one Joint Development Authority. And so after I took office and after Senator Mullis was named as their executive director, Catoosa County joined into that group, and now it is a 4-county joint development authority. And they market our counties, and they work with the state economic development department to bring in incentives. They also work with the governor's office. And they don't only market it, but they provide the best job tax credits. If we don't have them, then we don't get the job tax credits, and they might mean a lot. As a matter of fact, Bluebird got about $50 million when they moved to Fort Valley, and part of it was job tax credits because they had such a low tier in Peach County that they were able to get $3,500 per piece for every job they created. And we didn't have any way to compete with that, as our tier system was higher. And they also put in $39.5 million in industrial revenue bonds and $8.5 million in One Georgia money. There was no way we could compete with them at that time, and that is why we lost Bluebird, not because I said I wouldn't cooperate. I've never not cooperated with anybody that has ever come here and wanted to establish a business or to keep a business here. So I just wanted you to know why my heart was set on the Swanson property. It's the only property in Hamilton, Dade, Catoosa, Walker, and Chattooga. It's the only parcel of property that large. We've been able to use it to market it. We have had architectural design on the property, and it is on the internet, and it has brought in a lot of contacts with us, and it's costing us very little. It's still on the tax rolls, and until we get a buyer, we'll be keeping it that way. I think it's good business, and I think it was a sound investment that we have made, and I'm proud of that. The Key to Fitness is a gymnasium that's in Rock Spring. It's fairly new. I have no financial interest, any interest in it at all. But when the fire department came to me and they said they had been looking for a gym where they could work out, because they have to stay in shape in order to fight fires and to go into burning buildings and to protect each other and to protect the community. And they said they'd found that they wanted to go to Absolute Fit in Fort Oglethorpe. And I said, no way. We're going to stay in Walker County. We're not going outside of Walker County to join a gym. In the meantime, we were looking at a wellness program, and so they did the research for me on the best gym they could find to put the program in, and they recommended the Key to Fitness. Well, I thought it was a good idea, and so I proceeded to move forward with that. And so I sent out a memo to our employees, and one of the employees came to me and she said, I belong to City Club, and I want you to give me the money that you're going to put in to Key Fitness for me so I can put it in the city club. Well, you can't hardly do that because it's sort of like a group health insurance policy. It's a group, because you have a group that join it at the same time, you get a great rate. And we got a great rate there, and I was not able to do that. But it infuriated Paul Shaw, and he set out right then to put a stop to me. So he wrote a letter to the editor. His ex-wife, who's the mother of the owner of the City Club, wrote a letter to the editor. She is a precious person. She's a beautiful young lady, and she never gave me a minute of trouble, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to use her club. It was not in the center of the county. The parking there was an issue with me and a few other things, and we made the decision to use something else, and it created a firestorm that has never gone away. At any rate, I don't own anything about the key to fitness. I think it's been sold to somebody else since we started using it. But we use that, and if an employee will exercise 3 times a week, and it's documented, they get $400 off their health insurance. Is deductible if they have to go to the doctor or the hospital. We have some other things that we also use, like keeping your weight down, keeping your cholesterol down, your blood pressure down, your blood sugar down, and so we saved $98,000 the first 6 months of going into full-blown fitness and health incentives. We put a clinic in our office, and it is handicapped accessible, and our employees really like it. They don't have to take off from work. They can just go by there, and a lot of it's free. They can get their prescriptions at a very reduced rate, and so it's turned out to be very good for Walker County employees and for Walker County in general. And so that's the reason that Paul Shaw started out to defeat me. And he'd never been in a meeting of mine. He came to 2 meetings during the time the hospital was in turmoil to say that he had had an attorney, he had had a doctor work for him, and that he was lazy and had wasted money, and they'd made him a hospitalist at Hutchinson, and he took exception to that. He came twice about the hospital issues and never came back. And I never saw Alice Campbell until after Paul Shaw lost the election, and then she started coming to my meetings. But she said she's always wanted to be a county commissioner, but she's never been around since I've been the county commissioner to ask any questions or come to any meetings or anything like that. So she's just, in her mind, that's what she wanted, but she never indicated it to me or mine. I didn't know about it. Want to talk about Mountain Cove Farms. Mountain Cove Farms is a real good thing that in the history of Walker County, I may be praised for what I've done. Right now, it's a political issue that is too bad. But when Mountain Cove Farms came for sale, some people came here from Ohio. They call themselves Wildwood, and they were trying to buy it for $43 million and turn it into a equestrian venue that was equal to Disney World. It was something to behold. 2 hotels on top of the mountain, a veterinary clinic that would be international, landing strip, all kinds of arenas and different things that were remarkable, but they were never able to get the funding to buy the property. But it stayed for sale, and then there was a plan after that to build several hundred homes on the property and a golf course. Well, if that had happened, we'd have had to build a new school, and our roads would all had to be widened, and it would have been very expensive to this community to have done that, and the taxes that were paid probably would not have offset the cost to this community for having that large a new subdivision in Walker County. But beyond that, that place is very special in that it has the largest variety of botanicals in the world except for the rainforest. And we have a book that shows the wildflowers of Pigeon Mountain that shows all those beautiful botanicals. There is a special salamander that only lives there. It is a historic location. It is a historic community back in long time, several years ago, while I worked for Roy Parish. Oglethorpe Power was going to come in and buy it and flood the valley flood the cove and turn it into a power distribution plant. And that community banded together, and they got it established as a historic community, and where you couldn't put a development of that nature in. And they literally did a good job in stopping that from happening, saving that beautiful community. And so ever since then, it's very quiet, it's very protected. The people that live around there mostly are farmers, and they're very private, and they don't want to be bothered, and they don't like government that much. But at any rate, Mr. DeLos Yancey and his family owned the property. And so when they were widening Highway 27, they needed some kind of mitigation for the green space they were taking up, and that is a federal requirement. And it was suggested that they buy 1,000 acres of property in on the Mountain Cove Farms area and use it for the mitigation, and they did that. Well, the state then bought 600 more acres on the top. Well, Mr. Yancey decided that was an excellent thing to do with that beautiful community, and so he wanted the state to buy the rest of it and keep it in green space instead of turning it into residential development. And so we invited Governor Perdue to come up and take a look at it, the other like 2,000 additional acres that was available. And we took him up on the mountain and showed him the view and talked to him about everything that was there, and he saw the deer and the turkeys and all the beautiful wildlife that was out there. And the next day he sent the Department of Natural Resources back to take another look at it, because they were going to do something with historic preservation in a park type setting somewhere in Georgia anyway. So they decided to go ahead and purchase it, but he told me that the county would have to participate to show good faith that this was what they wanted, and he told me that he wanted me to participate, and I asked him what if I could have the part I wanted, and he said, what do you want? And I said, I would like to have the buildings. He said, no problem, we don't need the buildings anyway. And so we negotiated a plan for the county and the state to band together to buy the rest of the available property. Everything out there is still not public. Part of it is still owned by the Yancey family, and they have a quail preserve that is also part of that. We were able to negotiate that and finally got it underway. And the county paid $2.15 million, is way, way, way below property value, the market value of that property. And so we really did good. And there's 300 acres there that we can develop very cautiously. And when I say that, we want to keep it green space. We don't want to change the way it looks. We don't want to offend the community, and I don't think I have. We've had several public hearings in that community, and they know what I'm about. I don't think they're upset with me at all. They don't want to be bothered, really. They want to leave things like they are. But what we've planned to do is to use grass-fed beef and vegetables from their gardens, and use the Lafayette agricultural classes and the 4-H clubs to go down there and help us put together food for a restaurant. And I think it'll work out very well for the whole community. But anyway, the marketing has not even been something we needed to do. We had a wedding from somebody in Colorado this past week, and there's a little video on it somewhere that we've just done, put it on Facebook or something. You can see a little bit of it there, but we're not having any trouble keeping it booked. It's booked through, there's only a few weeks in next year that it hasn't been booked. So it's working, and what I want to do with that, and we've got people that would like to take it and market it for us and make money from it themselves and lease it back to us. But I think if we keep it and make all the money and put it back in the general fund, that will offset these losses that we're experiencing right now with the downturn in the economy and with the lowering of our digest, about $18 million in the past year. With reference to Walker County's audit, our audit is not due until March the 31st of 2013, so it won't be ready at the end of this month. They don't even come in to do your audit until at least the latter part of October, because the new budget year starts October 1 under normal conditions. With reference to Walker County's debt, our debt is minimal. And I have notes here about the debt because I may not be able to remember it, but we bonded $24 million for the special purpose local option sales tax in 2008. That is paid down to $12,881,817. And so that's what the audit said was 15 months old, so we've had another huge payment on there since then. We have $2.99 million in capital leases, and that's on equipment for roads, landfill, fire department, all the capital leases that we have. That is like lease purchase agreements, so that we don't have to come up with the money all at one time, but we come up with it once a month, and it is in our budgets to do so. Something odd that we have is compensated absences. When you have people that have comp time they haven't taken, it's considered a debt until they've taken that comp time. And so their vacations and their comp time that hasn't been done has got to be considered a debt. And that is $734,533. But when I took office, it was way over $1 million. So we've whittled that down a lot now. The landfill closure is something that is required by law. We have no control over it, and until it has been 30 years since it's been closed, it will hang over our heads, and we don't have to pay it. It is a liability on our audit, and it's $3,767,327. So all that we are responsible for, our debt, short-term note of 1.5 that we'll be paying before the end of December because it's required on a tax anticipation note, which many places do for just cash flow when you're waiting on money to come in, and that's what we've done there. But our debt that I'm in control of is $2,099,000. That the capital leases is $2.99 million, and that's all that we have, and that is very, very low. Our credit rating of AA3, that is enviable. Many counties don't even have a credit rating. We didn't have a credit rating when I took office. I was able to go and establish that by going to New York and taking all of our assets and liabilities, our future plans, and we went to Moody's and to Standard & Poor's, and we got a better credit rating than we even expected. And I'm proud of that. I don't have any reason to be embarrassed by that, or if it even dropped a small percent, it would not double the interest rate. That is not true. And our interest rate is a fixed interest rate. And if we lost our credit rating altogether, it wouldn't change the interest rate that we have now. That's a fixed, established interest rate. So that's not true. But our debt and our interest rate is enviable all over the country. So we don't have anything to be ashamed of. And our economy is bad. As you know, Walker County is not near as bad as some areas around us, and part of it is because of Chattanooga being prosperous, and we work there, and we get some benefit from having that, because we do have some suppliers that supply to Chattanooga and to Volkswagen right now, and we expect that to improve. I was just reading some of my notes here so that I don't want to miss anything here. But I did hear some things that I took exception to with Miss Campbell's interview night before last. And so I just thought I'd mention those things. One thing is the transparency. I don't know how we could be more transparent, except that we didn't really buy the Swanson property, so the transparency that you were looking for didn't need to be there. We haven't done what with Mountain Cove, what was said, so that transparency didn't need to be there. I don't know what I haven't told you, because I want to tell you. I don't care to tell you anything I have done or plan to do or am doing. So the transparency that people are talking about is a word. With reference to the transit system, Walker County does have a transit system, but we're not funded with a 100% grant. That's a 50% grant. So Walker County puts more than $300,000 of your county tax dollars into the Walker County Transit. So it's not 100% funded by the federal government. It's only 50% funded. Our emergency services, I pretty much built that from the ground up. When I took office, I was at a Catlett fire station when they had to jumpstart the fire engine to get it into the road so they could roll it down and start it so they could go to a fire. Bad. All their brush trucks didn't have, their headlights were broken out. Their equipment was surplus and wearing out and really bad, and they needed a big boost. And we were able to do that, and that's to your advantage. That is one thing that you get a return on your investment, and that is when you lower your ISO rating, you lower your cost of homeowners insurance and liability insurance. And so we've been able to do that. We're very proud of that. So we've upgraded the 911 to make it modern so that it won't fail you. And our fire department, we've turned it into a wonderful emergency services, and it has been, we are doing an ISO review right now, and if we drop to a 3, which we expect to, then we'll probably have the only volunteer county fire department in the state of Georgia with an ISO rating of 3. We're one of 2 with a 4. So it's to your advantage for us to do what we do with this. And we were able to get $1 million grant to put a big a big truck that we just brought in right now, and that will be wonderful for our economic development portion, our industry. I know I've heard people who don't really maybe understand this say, well, we don't have any multi-story buildings, why do we need ladders? We need ladders to run across industrial properties so that you can put a fire out in the middle. And there's a lot of things that we need that you might not understand, that I don't necessarily understand, but I've been told, and I do believe that we're in much better shape than we were when I took office. I think the whole county's in better shape than it was when I took office, and I take great pride in that. We've got dedicated employees that are dedicated not only to the county but to you, the citizens of Walker County, and they work hard for you. Not everyone, but most of them are. Our ambulance service was out of necessity. We had 6 weeks to put it together. The other 2 counties decided on something else, and we put that ambulance service in because we need more ambulances than we could contract to get. We've got more now than we've ever had, and we're trying to put more in communities that are distant from our cities so that it doesn't take a long time to get to you with an ambulance. And we've got a long way to go with volunteers, with trained personnel. We can't afford a 3rd paid crew right now, and we need it badly, but we don't have enough money for that, and so I'm not going to be able to do it. I wish I could, but neither can anybody else without raising your taxes a lot. With reference to the library, I've done everything I know to do to help the libraries. We put more money into any single entity. We put more money into the schools. We put more money into any city. We put approximately $160,000 a year into it. They all belong to the cities. Each library belongs to the respective city where it sits. And back many years ago, they had a referendum to see if the counties wanted to participate in funding the city libraries, and it failed. But Commissioner Quinn, Commissioner Parish, Commissioner Chapman, and I myself have chosen to put money into it because county citizens also use those city libraries, and we think we need to. But in order to put enough money into it to really operate it well, I want to have a referendum, and I noticed that my opponent says so too. But I will not do everything that is expected of me until you tell me what you want. And if I stay here, I'll put that on the ballot the next chance I get. With reference to the Rossville debate, I was told that it was between the state representatives from District 1. I was never invited to that, and I had a young man, a very young man, who called me from Villanelle and said, "Are you going to go to that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I hadn't really planned to." And he said, "Well, they're going to give Ms. Campbell the last 10 minutes to speak. Are you going to go and speak?" And I said, "Well, I wasn't invited to speak." And so it became an issue, and they've talked to me back and forth, and I didn't go. But I didn't go not to keep her from speaking. I wasn't invited to speak to that, and so it turned out that way. But I've got 40 years of public administration, and I have a high level of intelligence, and I'm not afraid to debate anybody on anything, and I never have been. And I've done many debates with other county commissioners in public debates and conferences and things where we sat in front of an audience and debated over issues. I'm not afraid to debate. I just didn't have the opportunity. And we aren't on the same wavelength with reference to debate. This is politics. This is a campaign. It's a whole different thing. When I didn't debate Paul Shaw, that was a terrible setup, and I would have been a fool to do it. And I had some people that didn't know I wasn't going to be there, and they shook their cars and made very bad gestures toward them, and it just wasn't a place to be. And so I didn't do it, and I don't care. With reference to take back Walker County, that is a scary element for me. I mean, I don't know who this is. I understand it was Paul Shaw's website and it's Alice Campbell's website, but we have a faction of people there that don't have Walker County's best interest at heart, and so it's a little scary to me. Take back Walker County. Who's taking it back, and what are they going to do with it when they get it? If any element gets a hold of that would intimidate you, they'll keep it forever and you'll never get it back. So that's a concern of mine that I can't get out of my head. With reference to my ability and efficiency, I got the impression that my opponent thought maybe I didn't know how to manage my time, and that's the reason I worked late. Sometimes I meet people in my office or in theirs or in another area all day long. Sometimes I have a steady flow of people coming to see me all day long. So if I want to answer my email or do any correspondence, I do it after hours. And that's why I work late, and I only don't work late when I have something I have to go and do, because I like to be alone long enough to concentrate and think about what I want to say to people when I write them back. And so I do it because I want to, but all I do is I work for Walker County, and I see to my daughter that lives with me at home. And I go to church, and that's just it. Those are my hobbies. That's my daily life, and I want to do that. That's why I do it. And I don't apologize for that. I do this for you and for me, and I try to be a good Christian leader, and I do my best to do that. I want to do that every day, and I think that's what we need. And I pray for judgment, and I pray for wisdom and judgment, and I'm not sorry for any of the decisions I've made, and I think that the Lord has guided me in what I've done. And I'm proud of that. I don't think that you should flap that in front of people in order to get their votes, but I do think that it is important, and I do practice it. With reference to nepotism is when somebody works directly for a supervisor or a leader. Nepotism is not when somebody works for an organization that you work for. If I were practicing nepotism, I would have a relative working direct for me as a supervisor or in my office. That's not happening. We have had some nepotism from elected officials in Walker County, and nobody seems to care. And this is an issue that's been talked about only by Paul Shaw and now by Alice Campbell, but I don't have a relative working directly for me. So I'm not practicing nepotism. I just wanted to say that we have dedicated employees, and I want to thank them, if they happen to be watching this, for what they've done, because we couldn't do any of this without them. And let me mention David Ashburn, who is probably the most dedicated employee I've ever met. And yes, he's got a lot of jobs. He wears a lot of hats. He saves us a lot of money. But he seems to be able to take on whatever you give him, and he likes to. And I didn't hire him because of his looks or his personality. I hired him, and I keep him because he can get the job done. If he's done something you don't like, you need to call me and tell me, and I'll see what I can do about it. And I'm sure that he would be sorry if he's offended you. But he is an issue in this campaign, and he should not be. He's worked for Walker County since 1992 and done a good job for Roy Parish. He was the emergency managed director under Buddy Chapman. He didn't work full time, but he was there and did work for him. And he has worked for me. He did not work in my campaign when I ran in 2000. He did not work in my campaign when I ran in 1996. He's not worked in my campaigns, but he has worked for me and he has worked for you. And I really think that he's been misaligned. I don't think he should be beaten up the way he's been beaten up by my opposition. And I just wanted to tell you that I think it's hurt his feelings some, but he'll be fine. And if I'm elected, I'm going to keep him. In reference to my salary is set by the General Assembly, and it was set as that the county commissioner, who is the chief elected official of the county, working a full-time job, makes $500 a year more than the highest paid constitutional officer. And that is my salary, and that will be the salary of my opponent if she is elected. I've got 40 years background in the operation of county and city government and in public administration. And so I earned my money. I don't feel bad about taking it, but I didn't set my salary. I've cut myself back twice because of the economy. And I know somebody recommended that we cut 10% from the people that were making the highest salaries that work for the county. And I cut myself back at that time, and I had one employee that made $10 an hour. And he said, if you're going to do it, I will. And I said, I can't let you. And I didn't let him. I was the only one that volunteered to take that cut, and I did. And when I cut and I've heard, we're going to cut back cars, we're going to cut back cell phones. I hear that in everybody's campaign. It happened in Chattanooga, it's happened in Walker, it happened here once before. But when I had to take cars and cell phones, I turned my automobile, the county vehicle that I had bought in 2001 as a used vehicle, I turned it over to the assessor's office to use, and I bought a car, and I drove my car and put 225,000 miles on my car. I paid for my insurance, I paid my payments, I took care of my own vehicle, I paid for the maintenance. I had them do some maintenance on my car because I had to take it to the for the Volvo place to get it fixed, and I didn't have the time, and they fixed it, and I don't feel bad about that because I was supposed to be driving a county car, and that is in the agreement for a sole commissioner. With reference to a multi-member commission and that cost, it is not true that the legislature sets the salaries of the multi-member commissions based on population. That is set. That is the constitutional officers. Their salary is set by the General Assembly based upon the population of their county. But county commissions, they set their salaries at whatever they want. And she referenced Catoosa County. There are 4 of them making over $12,000 a year and 1 making $17,000. That's a $65,000 about. Plus, but they have benefits. They have expenses. They have a lot of different things that you don't see, but they travel. 5 of them travel, not just 1, and the counties pay that cost. And then they have to hire a professional executive or county manager, and they make more than $100,000 a year mostly. And it is not more efficient for a sole commission, for a multi-member commission, than it is a sole commissioner form of government. And just so you'll know that it is not an outdated system, it is an elite and special opportunity for people in Georgia to have 3 or 4 different choices for the kind of government they want. And in 2008, Bartow County, who is a county of 110,000 people 50 miles from Atlanta, had a referendum on a multi-member commission, and they went back to the sole commissioner form of government, and their county commissioner of 20 years was reelected, and he's been there 24 years, and he's retiring. So he will meet Roy Parish's time frame as the longest serving county commissioner in the state. But when the Wall Street Journal came and talked to me, I regret I didn't spend more time so that I could show him the best parts of Walker County instead of just the people that sold boiled peanuts and wore overalls and carried Confederate flags around and name their roads funny names, because we have a wonderful county. We have the best opportunities anywhere, because we have a lot of rural, a lot of green space, a lot of land. We've got a lot of protected land. We've got great cities, and Rossville is a city that I have worked very, very hard to support. And if it hadn't been for Walker County's help, they couldn't have remained a city. I mean, even while Johnny Baker was there, not just Teddy Harris, but also Mayor Baker, who I liked very much. But we've helped them tremendously. We own a lot of the things that they use and have turned it over to them and pay the utilities, and have helped them with their recreation department and a lot of other things. And so if anybody in Rossville has ever said that Walker County didn't provide them enough support, ask them. You ask any council person that's been there and gone, any of them that are sitting on the council right now, or the two mayors that have been serving since I took office, just ask them and see how much help we've given them. We've given every city a lot of help, and they may not notice it or they may expect it, but we have done it. I just thank you for watching this, and I hope it has been some help to you in understanding your government and what I'm about and what I'm doing and what I want to do for the future, which I didn't even tell you, but I really have a lot of plans for the future in communities and to protect communities and to rebuild Walker County's roads so that we don't have to pave them every 5 or 6 years, but they'll last 20 years like they're supposed to. I'm going to have to close this out. I don't want to be here all day. But I thank you so much for watching this, and I want to ask for your vote and your support on November the 6th. With the write-in candidate, I have to have votes again to be reelected, and I'd appreciate you checking that box when you go to vote. Thank you for tuning in. May God bless you.
November 2000, Bebe Heiskell was elected as the sole commissioner of Walker County. Walker County now enjoys one of the lowest tax rates for county government in the state of Georgia, the best maintained roads in North Georgia, efficient emergency services that save lives and property, outstanding commitment to economic development and tourism, commitment to quality growth and industrial recruitment, community participation and fairness in county government decisions, the highest level of services ever offered in Walker County, courtesy at every level. Walker County is recognized at both state and federal levels as an example of good management. Bebe listens to you and works hard for you, the citizens of Walker County.
I'm Bebe Heiskell. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Walker County as your commissioner. I hope I can count on your vote.
Vote for proven leadership that you can trust. Vote for Bebe.